Illegal drugs are insanely, insanely profitable. Yeah, the people over at Information is Beautiful created a graph, a chart to take a look at and show you how much more profitable they are than legal drugs. So let's take a look. Okay, so this is in value per square kilometer. Cocaine, $37,700,000 per square kilometer. That's a lot of money in cocaine. Rice, which is perfectly legal as far as I know, $140,000 per square kilometer. Sugarcane, $262,000. So cocaine, a lot more expensive. Let's scroll down a little bit and see some of the other big ones. Marijuana. We love marijuana on this show. $47,666,000 per kilometer, per square kilometer. Again, a lot of money. What does that compare with? Well, potatoes are only about $365,000. Tobacco, only $277,000. I thought that one was kind of interesting. Opium, poppy, again, illegal. A lot of money. Barley is only $36,000. That is a steal for barley to get a square kilometer of barley. Is anything, before we jump back, is anything jumping out to you here besides that it's pretty obvious what's going on here and war on drugs kind of stuff?
Yes. One, truffles are notably absent.
Yeah, truffles would be bigger than anything, right? Truffles are absurdly, annoyingly, even that truffle oil,
you
get that?
Like the shaving of,
yeah.
But
That's
also,
a very good point.
I think that the other sort of pattern in here that you see is cocaine, marijuana, and opium all also have medicinal properties, which I think tomatoes and potatoes don't necessarily have.
Tomatoes don't? What about lycopene? They keep telling me about lycopene. Isn't that very good for you?
I've never heard of what that thing is.
You don't know about lycopene?
Nope.
Oh, it's big. It's big in the tomato community. You know about, you're a mother, you must know about lycopene.
I know nothing about it.
You don't know anything about lycopene?
You're going to have to tell us about it after the show.
Yeah, it's supposed to be good. It's in tomatoes. They have it, it says it on the hind thing. Anyway, when you look at that, is that just an obvious example of why the war on drugs was an absolute, abject, utter, give me another adjective, just pure disaster?
When I first saw that chart, I thought to myself, they shouldn't be showing this to farmers. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're doing a disservice on the war on drugs.
Right, because now the barley guy is
Yes.
going to be like, well, I should make a little coke over here. And,
Yeah.
It's also fascinating, and I'm so interested to see what happens with the marijuana legalization process in this country. Because, you know, if you think about it, in all of US history, there are only 3 mind-altering substances that have ever been legal, right? It's nicotine, caffeine, and alcohol. And think about the size of those markets, and think about the fact that none of those also have medicinal properties the way that marijuana does. And also the fact that, you know, since it's been illegal for all time, essentially, the only people who've made any money in that market are criminals now. And so, like, if you were to actually let real business people into that sort of world, the amount of money that they could make, first of all, once the risk is sort of diminished, is crazy. And the amount, and just the size of the market is ridiculous. As you saw from that, it's illegal, and the size of, you know, the market or the supply and demand is like that. But
yeah.
I'm so fascinated.
So isn't the marijuana thing particularly, shouldn't that be a Republican issue? I did a video on this last week. It seems to me that they want small government, right? So they want the government out of your bedroom, out of your house, out of your living room. So if you want, you could smoke a little weed and watch TV. That's small government, so they should want that. And they also, because they want low taxes, they want to figure out other ways to raise revenue. Well, you could then start taxing the marijuana. So it seems to me the Republicans, if they wanted to be cool, they could actually be cool and keep their principles here, as opposed to just this being a Democratic issue where it's like, we like to get stoned, you know?
The problem isn't like the fiscal conservatives who are Republican because of that. It's the fact that their largest constituency is the religious right as well. Right. And I think it's more sort of a religious hot topic.
So what's the deal with, so they don't want you to get stoned because they don't want you to have a spiritual experience outside of Jesus? Is that?
Wow, I don't. You know, I find
Maybe there's something in the Bible about like don't take mind-altering substances, but then there's wine. Jesus, wine. I mean, I don't know. Again, I'm a Jew. I don't know.
Yeah.
I find the whole thing interesting when I look at it, because when you look at it, it's like when you see for the first time the chart of all the different sizes of stars. And ours is this puny little star, and then you're like, whoa, all this is going on. And I was so surprised that marijuana was the biggest one, given that I always assumed heroin and cocaine cost more than marijuana.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
The demand for them
the
is
demand,
also a lot lower. Yeah, I mean, every high school kid sort of tries marijuana. Not everyone's getting into heroin.
Yeah, exactly. So what would you say to the people that say, well, if you make marijuana legal, which now D.C. just voted on it, right? The state of Washington has it, Colorado has it recreationally, not just medicinally. What would you say to the people that say, well, if you start with marijuana, then it's going to be cocaine and crack, and next thing you know, your kid's going to be on heroin.
Right. I would say if it starts with marijuana, it's most likely going to end with a lot of marijuana. You know what I mean? Very rarely do you kick it on up to the other ones. I mean, people do,
But isn't that the funny thing about marijuana? Like, I used to smoke a lot of pot. I know plenty of people that smoke a lot of pot, and there's something about marijuana. I think George Carlin said something about like this, that people that smoke marijuana eventually usually stop by their own volition without hitting rock bottom or becoming criminals or doing awful things for it. Yeah. Like, there's something about marijuana that it sort of resolves itself, as opposed to a lot of these other drugs that's usually not the case, right?
Well, the biggest thing for me is like, what are the addictive properties, right? Like, to me, and this is maybe a radical view, like, tobacco should be outlawed far earlier than any of these other things because of the capacity to become addicted to it. Yeah. Like, it's become chemically modified to be as addictive as possible, whereas it's, you know, only a small portion of the population of smokers of marijuana that can actually become addicted to it, and same with cocaine and all these other things. So, like, there's also never been an overdose of marijuana in history. Like, all of these things, when you think about safety, when you think about not just immediate safety, like you could overdose, but also long-term safety, is it going to give you lung cancer or whatever else? Like, tobacco, in terms of the drugs on this list, like, it's the only product on the market that kills 50% of people who use it as directed.
Yeah, so final thought, so we need a weed lobby the way we have a tobacco lobby, right? Like, is that really, I mean, and that's already starting to happen. There are now lobbyists in DC.
They're not very organized.
They just don't get out of the house.
Right. Yeah. And by the way, when George Carlin probably said that joke, marijuana was probably a lot less potent. I mean, now marijuana is so potent, I can't abide by that completely, you know.
Fair enough.